Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the entire United States. Good morning to the entire world. Welcome to Politics Done Right. You are receiving our signals in the rest of the world via the magic of El Internet, created by whom? We the people, you. Now controlled by the billionaires, but something we intend to take back. Anyway, folks, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Before I get started, let me go ahead and transfer this to the geniuses in the studio. We have a lot to talk about, but we'll do it. Jack, how you doing this morning?
We're doing great. We're doing great, Egberto. How are you?
I am doing fine. I'm doing fine. Let me see. I kind of came in quick without saying, welcome to Howard Reynolds and Jacques Van Weber. But hey, what can I say?
Well, that's okay.
Right.
We got you got to us. We're all right. Yes. Our egos are not so big that you had to address us first. We're not the tangerine toddler.
Oh, so, you're not. Oh God!
No,
I thought I had me too many Trumps in that studio. Man,
I want some attention. Give me some attention.
Wah. No, good. Good morning, Egberto. It is Tuesday morning at the radio, the 27th of May. We're working on getting Elise Bench to get in here and get the tin cans and string hooked up. Currently, the tin cans and string are not functioning, but we will find out why and fix that.
But
Jack, you got a full sequence in there.
Oh.
I was ignoring the host. I better stop doing that.
No. Let's see, brother Jack Van Weber.
All right. Good morning, Egberto. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, my brother. Talk to me.
All right. I'm going to go over the Medicare Advantage thing. Yes, Medicare Advantage is a scam that enriches the stockholder and the CEO of the Medicare Advantage for-profit insurance companies. When you sign up for one of these policies, the control over your health care goes into the hands of the private for-profit healthcare company. They make their money off administering your Medicare to you at a profit. So your care costs more because of the profit the Medicare Advantage insurance company plus the premium you pay for that policy. So they're getting you twice, basically. They also use a tactic of denying and delaying treatment or refuse to pay for a drug that you need. If they do this to 20% of their clients, usually the client that requires the most health care, they profit greatly by collecting the sign-up fee of $8,000. When they flip you into a Medicare Advantage, they get paid $8,000 by the government. Ain't that a scam? All right.
It's a dirty little scam.
Well, things will be different after the revolution.
After the kickback.
when the United States falls into total disrepair and we have to rebuild it, let's rebuild the oligarchs out.
Yeah, we have to retask the oligarchs. We have to retask them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, garbage.
We have to give them another task.
Garbage men.
I like the way you said that. We have to retask.
I've been thinking about that.
What oligarch would do the work that we do? I can't think of one.
Yeah, they might get a broken fingernail.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. Let's give Egberto back his show because
it's our show. Is Elise in yet, or she's not in yet, or are you still trying to figure out how we get her, or what?
Yeah, I've got to work the tin cans and string here. So
all right,
you go right ahead with your show, and we'll let you know when she's in.
Okay, thank you, my brother. Anyway, folks, welcome to Politics Done Right. We are going to have a great show for you today. Before I get started, I want to remind all of you that while we're going to give you a great show, that we are, in fact, at KPFT in what's known as Fund Drive mode, where we are trying to raise our $170,000 to run this station. Yesterday, unfortunately, because, we had some technical problems, wasn't able to get it all in, and we didn't make our $500 quota, which means now I am behind by about $800. So therefore, that's a 500 for today and the $300 for yesterday. So I am trusting, I'm hoping that while we're giving you an important program with important information, that some of you will be so kind to give us a call at 713-526-5738, extension number 1. And again, check out when you go to kpft.org, a lot of offers that we have. All right, so that is, one more time, I'll give you the info, 713-526-5738, extension number 1 to donate, or go to KPFT, click on that donate button, select the gift. Remember to choose Politics Done Right as the program you are supporting. And if you do it by phone, remember to tell them it's politicsdoneright.com, Politics Done Right that you're supporting. All right, we got a contribution upgrade in her membership. Gayla Kunis. I don't know if Gayla Kunis is on right now, the chat, but please, Gayla, if you are here, give me a shout out in the chat. Want to say thank you so kindly for upgrading and getting that higher rate on your sustainer. We cannot do this without good folk like you, Gayla Kunis. Thank you so kindly. I'd like you to give me a shout out either on Substack or in the chat if you are already here listening to the program. All right. The title of the show today is Trump's lies are no longer just words. They are deadly. The second topic, AOC scolds GOP on Medicare Advantage. There's a great article written in Common Dreams that I want to paraphrase, and it was done by Ralph Nader, and it's an important article because, words matter when you are the president. If person X says something, who cares? If the president says something, it carries weight, not because of the person, but because of the presidency, that thing that belongs to the American people. So when Trump lies, democracy dies. That's an article title written by Ralph Nader, and his subtitle was Trump's lies are no longer just words. They have deadly and costly effects and can soon produce calamitous consequences. I want you to listen to this as I paraphrase it and interspace. The chronic lies of the Führer, Trump, hour by hour, day after day, are having deadly and costly impacts on the American people, with many more casualties in the pipeline of wreckage he and his henchman, Elon Musk, have wrought since January 20th. And I want to point out that it is worse than Ralph says, because the dissension, the angst that he's created among people, the hate that he has created among different groups of folks by instigating false differences, etc., is in my opinion, that is one of the most clearest present dangers of today. The fact that we are otherizing others, we're making brother and sister split in vile manners. That type of governance, instead of trying to keep people together, I think is likely the biggest dangers, because from that division, you can actually create the chaos needed to execute, to pretty much rip the American people off. President Donald Trump lies, threats, and fake promises come from what dozens of psychologists who in 2017 perceived Trump as processing an unstable, dangerous personality. Trump, a serial megalomaniac, announced recently, I run the country and the world. Those were directly out of the mouth of the Führer. Those were directly out of the mouth of Donald Trump. So this is what we are going to build on. This message for the first part of this morning is what we're going to build on. But Lisa Blair, good morning from Atlanta. I think from Atlanta, Georgia. We have MST Marie 83. Happy Tuesday from Western North Carolina. And we have in the house several on Substack right now. Catherine Hill says, Ralph Nader plus Egberto Willies. What a treat. Good morning, everyone, she says. Welcome, Melissa Ribarge, Deborah Doyle, Teal Nyland, Karen, Ginny Morgan, Wendy, Adam W., Hemani, Mary Ann, Carolyn Lee, Ayan Kolukwi, Karen, Roosevelt Thomas. That is Cole Quoon. Sorry, Ian, for bastardizing your name. Bonnie Sawicki, Marge KJ, Betty Burton, and Grace Carfunkel. I missed the first 40 or so please go ahead, and if you want to throw your name in there and I call out your city and state, I'll be so happy to do so. Okay, so the last words that I mentioned from the article was what was out of the mouth of the Führer, Donald Trump. I run the country and the world, he says, confident that he can violate any law, any constitutional restraint, any international treaty. Dangerous Donald say he is having fun, flipping out one illegal executive order after another with cruel and vicious hamper blows against dedicated civil servants performing crucial tasks for Americans he has fired or replaced. Think about all going to the parks, Yosemite, or all these other places. Staff cut, lines long, put the American people at a disadvantage under the pretext that they are not needed. So the American people suffer, and he collects all these bits and pieces of money for his big tax cut to people who don't need it, then earn what they have, most of them. And I say that with no, I say that categorically. Billionaires didn't earn their fortune. The people that are listening to my voice right now, you earned their fortune for them. So whenever you see a billionaire, give yourself a pat on the back and know that the biggest donation you have ever given in life is the creation of billionaires. That is where the massive amount of the what they call excess labor goes to. When we have more time out of fund drive, we'll go over the economics that nobody wants you to know. As long as we can keep you thinking that guy earned it, while you are lucky to have him create a job for you, as soon as we learn that that's not the reality, we will start demanding what we deserve, demanding what we've earned. Who else has he affected? Recent immigrants paying taxes and working essential jobs at low wages, harvesting our food, cleaning up after us, caring for our children and elderly, for example. Well, as all these people get scared and either self-deport or leave, what do you think is going to happen to a lot of folks who were used to having enough folks in this country to take care of their kids, to do what's right? Think about that, folks. My God, Joseph, thank you so kindly from Lake Jackson, Texas. You made our day. You made up about half of where we are behind. Folks, let's join Brother Joseph Allen and in support. Thank you so kindly, Brother Joseph Allen. Now, the law enforcers and courts who work to bring him to justice is under attack as well. It's under attack as well. The torrent of Trumpian falsehoods have their own mass media, his own social media, and the mainstream media, which still reports them out, including repeating his capital letters in his posts without his victims any right of reply, even when they are named. True, the mass media now tells us when some of his wild and crazy concoctions are false, like his shameless false claim that a picture of graves was purportedly of slain white South African farmers. I don't know how many of you are on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook Live or whatever, but luckily we have a lot of our good white South African brothers and sisters going on TikTok and all these other places and saying, no, there is no genocide here. There is no genocide in South Africa. There are things being done in South Africa right now to right a wrong, but it's not doing in a way to harm this generation of our white South African brothers and sisters, the folks who understand that atonement is necessary. Don't buy the lies. Even the South African farmers are now wanting the world to understand, no, we are not victims. There are no refugees here. There are no refugees. There's no genocide here. They are out there all over correcting the record. But it's our mainstream media alerting the American people who are buying into the lies Donald Trump is saying? Do we have our mainstream media not doing one or two stories, but since immigration is a big story, and since these South African farmers got preferential treatment as we're throwing out people to Sudan and other places that are being wrecked, as that is occurring, is our mainstream media out there telling our MAGA brothers and sisters, look, they're snowing you. We know Fox News isn't going to do it. Well, Politics Done Right will, and other small networks are. But, when I, was a board member with the Coffee Party USA, one of the things that we had, a program that we had was called Be the Media. And what Be the Media meant was we were a network. Everybody's a part of a network. So all of you that are listening to me right now, all of you that are on Substack, all of you that are on Facebook Live, all of you that are on YouTube Live right now, all of you that are on Twitter Live, all of you that are on Instagram Live or TikTok Live hearing this message. This message is not just for you who are listening to it in real time. Info is made when you talk to your brother, your sister, your auntie, that person in that grocery line that you hear make a silly comment. Go up to that person, say, hi, sis, or hi, brother. Let me just say that isn't quite right. Let me point you to this nicely and move on. You don't have to have an argument, a discussion, and move on. I saw a couple of slides a few days ago with a woman who was explaining how she goes to the dog park every day, and one of her friends at the dog park told her that their other friends that used to walk the dogs together, they don't speak anymore. And why is he said, well, she doesn't like me anymore because he voted for Trump. And he doesn't know why she's taking it so seriously, because it doesn't really matter. And this woman had a great conversation with this guy. And she said the best part of the conversation, look, there are people that are immutable. Don't get me wrong. There are people that just want to be immutable. Nothing's going to change them. But she said it was amazing after having a civil conversation with him, nothing confrontation, the way she brought him in. And she said just watching him absorb what she was saying, not coming out and saying, I am a convert. I'm no longer a Trump sycophant. I'm no longer that. But she says, that isn't going to happen where change really occurs. She said, if you saw how the change slowly occurred when she made him understand the angst of many people, etc. And it's just a matter of patience, perseverance, and understand that most people are, in fact, good people. Now, you have the immutable. Don't get me wrong. There are those that are just, Hillary got a big rap when she said there are some that are deplorable. There are, in fact, people who are deplorable. They are happy in the pain of others. They're happy in the suffering of others. There are folks that are wired that way, but fortunately, it's not the majority of people. Welcome aboard, Joanne from Los Angeles, California. So continuing, the true mass media now tells us some of the lies that Donald Trump speaks about, but too many are not told. Too many are not told. But fact-checking doesn't reach most of the people who receive Trump's lies. For these people, his carve-outs of reality are unrebutted. And that's the reason I said we created a program called Be the media, because we are not going to reach some people. MSNBC, CNN, 60 Minutes, and so forth are not going to reach some people that are just entrenched in these guys. But you know what? You can. As an example, I have relatives that are MAGA. I can reach them mano a mano, right? But what a lot of us have to get over is the fear of how that person hearing our message is going to react and not wanting to be bothered about it. We don't want to be bothered about having that argument. Well, what I'm saying is we're not going to have arguments. What I'm saying is you don't have arguments. If it breaks into an argument, dismiss yourself kindly, civilly from the discussion and open up again at another time. Can we have a civil discussion? Ask a lot of questions. Ask them item for item what they expect, what they want. Watch how you bring them around to seeing things the way they really are. Not seeing things your way, but seeing things the way they are. Seeing things the way they are. Rarely when they do so, in the case of Trump alleging widespread, when you talk about Social Security fraud, Medicare, Jack started out talking about the evils of Medicare Advantage, and Medicare Advantage is doing no different than what the people who sell Medicare Advantage, they're doing nothing different than what Donald Trump is doing, trying to turn a lie into a believable thing for people to buy into it, for people to buy into something that's going to harm them in the long run. It looks like candy now, but it harms them in the long run. You see? It's important. Welcome, Cheryl Elkins, Ernie Boxwell, Diane, Anton Dinetto, and several others. Carol Parrott, Robert Green. Margaret Ryan says, morning. Margaret, where are you from again? Can't remember. Let me go to the other stream to see who else I need to say hello to. MS Marie says, I had to divorce my son's father because him and his in-laws spewed nothing but Fox News lies 24/7. And I didn't want my son growing up around that. They are a lost cause. Yeah, there are some people that are immutable. You're right, MS Miss T. Marie 83. But let me tell you, I tell people this, right? Some people say after a while they just can't take it anymore. It's a psychological, it's too psychologically draining to be on the correct side and have to justify that otherwise. What I say is this: that is okay. Everybody has to do what's mentally sound for them. Now, I have dedicated my life to this. And I'll speak and talk to absolutely anybody. I would break bread with absolutely anybody. Some of us can do that. Those who can, do it. Remember what we're doing here. But let's go to Bruce, line number 1, and then I'll continue with the narrative that I'm given here with Brother Ralph Nader's commentary. Go ahead, Bruce.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
Yeah, when I see Donald Trump, I'll tell you what it reminds me of. We've all seen the guy that feels kind of inferior, goes out and buys the biggest pickup truck. About 40 years ago, I was in New Orleans doing a job. The guy stepped out of the elevator. It's an old man with a pot belly wearing an expensive suit dripping in gold. Under his arm was about a 20-year-old girl. Well, that's probably a guy that never, when he was young, could get a date. So he gets an escort to impress people. Well, Donald was never in the military. He was a draft dodger. So he's like, well, they respect all these generals for all their knowledge. I can wave my hand and be more powerful and fire them, make them put a parade in front of me. They say I'm a failed businessman. Well, guess what? I control the world's economy. If I fart, the market jumps 200 points. Look at me. What is happening is psychologically he feels inferior. He's a basket case, so he's striking out the opposite way to try to impress probably himself more than everybody else. So anyway, that's what's going on in his head, I think. But if it wasn't for the fact that his actions affect us, if it wasn't for that, I'd feel sorry for the man. But I don't feel sorry for the man. I'm done.
Thank you. Yes.
By the way, Egberto, the possum came back a minute ago. I shoot him off.
All right. Don't let him bite you, but take care, my brother. Thank you for calling in. You have a wonderful day. I think Bruce nailed it. That He never served in the military. He was a lousy businessman. All those things are true. But what he's showing is that with all of that, with all the critique he's gotten for 6 bankruptcies, for never serving, for not having what it takes, he still can show, I am the president of the United States and I have the power to control all of you. And that is what we must, in fact, for anybody that is doing such a thing, negate them. Harry Denson, welcome aboard. He says, Egberto, people who buy into the convicted felon President Donald Trump's lies are suckers and fall for the okie dokie of Trump and Musk lies. Yes, they do. All right, continuing. Fact checking is not enough. Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain is in the house. She says, good morning, folks. All right. Look, so fact checking isn't enough. And, what Elise said sorry for messing up your name. Elise said is true. What we must have are good conversations. We had a little issue here, but look, here is the deal, folks. What Elise said is absolutely true. What we want to have are conversations with people, right? Conversations with people. Whenever it breaks out into anything other than a civil conversation, you are wasting your time. So therefore, for those of us who are talking to our brothers and sisters and doing whatever it is that we're doing, trying to convince our folks or to enlighten some folks, if it ever breaks down into somebody just snapping back or at that point, the conversation is over. You only speak to people who are willing to answer questions, listen to you, etc. In other words, when I sit down in Starbucks and speak to my MAGA brothers and sisters, and I have quite a few of them. In fact, if in the old days before the pandemic, when I lived at Starbucks, right, and all of that, if they see my car there, they would just stop by. And if they're going to the grocery store, some of them would have their wives calling, "Where are you? I sent you to buy butter." "Oh, I'm here at Starbucks talking to Egberto, And the thing about it is, if you have the line of dialogue there, you're not looking for that person to say they've seen the light. You're looking for them to see the light on their own. All you're doing is laying a foundation that eventually they see the light. I want to get back to Ralph Nader, but I want to tell you a quick story. We were talking about immigration with a MAGA guy a couple of years ago, and he hated immigration and he wanted all these people gone, etc. And I gave him some things to, we were talking, and he said, "Yes, well, Egberto this," and I'm like, "But do you want me to leave the country? I'm an immigrant." He said, "No, you did it the right way," etc. And this guy has many companies, including a lawn company. And I explained to him, he was talking about these guys not paying taxes. I said, "Do you know if these guys weren't paying into Social Security, their X amount of years that Social Security would be gone because they pay into Social Security, but they can never get the benefits." And I gave him a whole lot of different points. And I said, "Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Fox News. I ask you to do one thing. Just look it up." And I hadn't seen this guy in a few weeks, and he saw my car at Starbucks, and he comes out to Starbucks and he slapped me on the back and he said, "You are going to like what I have to say." I'm like, "What?" He said, "I think we need to be a country that was on immigrants, that support immigrants." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "But we need to do it the Republican way." And I kind of shook my head and I said, "Well, look, at least we're halfway there, whatever it is." I said, "I tell you what, why don't you do this for me? Write me a blog and I will post it anonymously, but tell me what immigration looks like to you." And I said, "I'll post it anonymously." He said, No, you don't have to post it anonymously. You can put my name onto it." And he wrote a blog supporting immigration, supporting bringing people over. Of course, they had to pay X amount of dollars and all of that to come over, etc. And it wasn't the way that I would do it, but we came to the same conclusion, though the process and the way to get there was different. Okay? So my thing is, as we talk to these folks, it's not about having it our way. It's about having it the way. How are we going to get Medicare for all? When people realize that insurance companies are a con in healthcare, insurance companies are a con job. When they come to that conclusion themselves, they may say, well, we don't want the government handling the healthcare. So the compromise may be, so would you accept a nonprofit corporation taking care of doing that? And suddenly you have a door open. Oh, yeah. And then now your point come in and say, well, and now that's a nonprofit, can we have limits as to how much bonuses? And there are all these different ways to get to the same place. Patrick is on the line. Patrick, come on in, my brother.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I am doing fine, my friend. Talk to me.
Well, you mentioned the Republican way of doing immigration. I kept hearing Kristi Noem and a couple other people saying, if you leave now, you can come back. If you don't leave, when we catch you, you can't come back. So I researched what that would look like, and what that led me to is an H-2B visa. Mm-hmm. An H-2B visa is supposed to be, and I say supposed to be in very large letters, used for seasonal work. Huh? So you can have an immigrant come in for a few months and work for a particular employer, and then they leave. Well, the H-2B visa is going to be how people come back, and their citizenship, and that's in quotations too, is going to be conditional to how they perform at work. And so their employer, which this makes it sound even more like slavery, is going to be the one that determines whether or not they get to stay in the country. That also means that they're going to be paid less, they're going to be taken advantage of more, they'll have fewer rights. And the big thing here is we'll probably have just as many immigrants here, they'll just have fewer rights. And so everybody that was angry and wanted them gone isn't going to see any change at all, except for a drop in wages.
Now, what you said is actually sad, right? But the interesting thing about it is that the guy, this MAGA guy who wrote the paper, and I need to go find the paper so I can post it in another blog because it's been years since he wrote it. Believe it or not, that's not what he was talking about. What you're talking about, I think, is Trumpian, right? It's their vision. It is their vision. But the good thing about it is, like you and I talk about all the time, Patrick, yes, there are people that are immutable, but there are mostly good people around. And a lot of the problems that we have is because of how we were reared. Look, you're a great guy, but I have a lot of friends, in quotes, friends that are very sexist, homophobic, racist, and they're friends. All you can do is keep talking to them. And when you pointed out that statement, that what they are is in effect slaves because you're holding the power on that employer to determine that person's future. Well, let me turn that around, right? When you point out to that person that's what their employer is doing to them as well, even as American citizens, and they may not see it immediately, but when something happens that triggers that seed that you, Patrick, planted into that person's head, that's why the talk is important, because it's not going to germinate right away, but you would have left that seed in their heads. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I'm certainly not discouraging talking to people.
Yeah, there you go. But by the way, I never forgot that story that you told me about the guys that you worked with and Kamala Harris. That one stuck in my head.
Oh, yeah.
And anything else, brother?
No, sir. You have a great day.
You too, my friend. Anyway, folks, for a lot of you are from out of state. Let me tell you a little bit about our station. We were actually bombed off the air twice by the KKK. We've lived through a whole lot in the attempt to shut us down here. So that is the kind of fortitude you're talking about. Every single voice that you hear on this station, whether they're playing music, they're giving commentary, whatever they're doing, they are heroes. They are heroes because they are here. Welcome aboard, Cliff Diamond, Gene Fuel, Lydia Beatrice, Jill LaRoe. I want to address something very important. Glenn Ryan is in the house. Welcome aboard, Glenn Ryan, as well from Atascocita, from Katy, Texas. Thank you for being here, my brother. I want to address something that Adam W. says, and I want to. I understand it perfectly. Adam says, I can respect that point of view, but I am supposed to meet the far right Trumpers halfway when they want to go full on fascism. Was Hitler and the SS open to meeting halfway? No. And again, Adam, no, you are not there to beg to meet halfway. You're there. There are a lot of people. There are the immutables. We talk about the immutables. Don't waste your time. The immutable are such. We just have to overpower the immutable, knowing that the immutable doesn't make up 50% plus one. The people that you get to are the folks that are open for a conversation. They are there because that's all they know, Adam, right? I know a lot of people that are the way they are because that's all they know. They are in a bubble. And whenever you get a chance to, like a virus, to just get into that interstitial, and you know that pretty quickly, there are folks you simply cannot talk to. You know, I have this thing that I always talk about, right? I remember talking to this lady in Starbucks, and she was just curious that I was there every day. And she had a conversation. And what we did is we had a conversation of kids and all of that kind of stuff, not about anything political till it was the right time. And because that conversation or that relationship was established, that conversation could occur. Those are the kinds of things that we have to be open for when it does occur. That is what we have to be open for when it does occur. So no, I'm not telling you to get into that position, my brother Adam W. I'm just saying if that opportunity exists for there to be a change, rule 1, find common ground. That's from Cheryl Elkins on Substack. And Cheryl, I think you nailed it. Rule 1, find common ground. And the thing about it is we can find common ground with so much. Thank you very much, MST Marie 83. Let's go to Margaret, line number 1.
Morning.
Good morning, Margaret. How are you doing this morning, sis?
I'm doing real well. I just have one thing to expound upon. When searching for relatability or common ground, biggest thing is don't attack, and introduce the possibility of reconciliation with their family and friends. And rather than debating facts and policy, open up a respectful back and forth. You've talked about this before. And then after you make some progress, which will likely take more than a single conversation, ask if they're open to hearing about regrets of former Trump supporters. And that might include work of nonprofits. So I understand you got to feel the mega supporter in your life is a racist or homophobic, downright unpatriotic. It's just please consider that saying those things will absolutely not convince them to leave MAGA. Mm-hmm. So it's just the first necessary precursors to self-empowerment. And the more we can do that, I think that we can sway these people to start thinking on their own instead of repeating the same old conversation and lies that they're telling them.
Margaret, perfect commentary, and I'm going to leave it right there because it needs no amendment. That is perfect. Thank you so kindly, Margaret. You have a wonderful rest of your day, okay?
You as well, Egberto. Thank you.
All right, folks, she nailed it. And let me just say this, right? It's not about meeting anybody halfway, my brother Adam. It's about engaging. And you know where strength lies? Strength lies in that I don't mind being wrong in something. I don't mind also humbling myself. That is strength. That is strength. That you believe enough in your own humanity that you realize, there are just times that you're wrong. There are times that you're right. And other people many times can read that, and it gives them the opportunity to help, not always, but to help break down those walls. As you know, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they were going to save money with by finding waste, fraud, and abuse. Waste, fraud, and abuse. So we have El Señor Musk who goes into Congress, goes into government and attempt to save $2 trillion. Well, he couldn't find $2 trillion, so he then attempted to find $1 trillion. Well, he couldn't find $1 trillion, so he then said he saved $150 billion and left the job with his tail between his leg as his faltering Tesla company started to fall apart. Well, the guy's just as incompetent, really, as Donald Trump. They make him out to be a baby genius. What he is somebody who has used his unearned fortune to buy other people's intellect. But that's beside the point. It turns out that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did something about waste, fraud, and abuse, or rather, she proposed something to do about waste, fraud, and abuse. And one of the biggest places we have waste, fraud, and abuse that could really get us about $120 billion real quickly is in getting rid of Medicare Advantage, or at least stopping the upcoding that Medicare Advantage likes to do, which means they charge a lot of money for you to the government, but they don't give you the service that they've charged the government for. It's called upcoding, right? So she has proposed a bill that has been proposed similar before with Kennedy and others in the Senate to fix that problem. And again, that would save about $120 billion just from Medicare Advantage alone per year. Think about that. It'll save a whole lot of money because the corporations rip off Medicare. The waste doesn't come from government. The waste comes from private corporations that rip the government off. So what she did is she explained perfectly how Medicare Advantage works, how it rips it off, and what can be done. Let's take a listen to that, and then we'll come back where we'll talk about what we really need to do is get rid of private insurance altogether. But let's go ahead and listen to what she has to say.
For months, we have been hearing the Republican majority talk about addressing waste, fraud, and abuse in our healthcare systems and in government systems writ large. One of the things I have found interesting in the discussions around waste, fraud, and abuse is that it curiously omits corporate waste, corporate fraud, corporate profiteering, and corporate abuse of public tax dollars all the time. And whether it's the failed audits of the Pentagon that get glossed over, whether it is the immense, and we've seen this, in plenty of oversight hearings on a bipartisan basis, defense contractors that are defrauding the public dime. But we have this in the healthcare space as well, particularly in the form of Medicare Advantage and what happens within Medicare Advantage. As many people know, Medicare itself is a health insurance program run by the federal government that covers people over the age of 65 and some people with disabilities. But Medicare Advantage is not the same thing as Medicare. Medicare Advantage is for-profit insurance. Medicare is public insurance. And listen, Medicare Advantage plans can be popular at first. These insurance companies will make the health insurance plans look good because up front, when you're healthy and don't need to go to the doctor, it looks like you save a few bucks compared to Medicare. But then when you get sick, that's when the sky falls down. That's when costs skyrocket. And when you really need care, you either can't get it in Medicare Advantage or you have to pay so much more out of your own pocket on a program that's ostensibly supposed to be done with public dollars. And these Medicare Advantage programs, the reason this unfolds in this way is because they are run by for-profit insurance companies. Companies like Cigna, Humana, and United Healthcare. They will take public taxpayer dollars that are intended for caring for Medicare eligible populations, and then they will take all of that money. They will make people look sicker than they are because there's an incentive to what is known as upcode. And then they pocket the difference because they will deny people the care that they need. Traditional Medicare, real Medicare, pays doctors and hospitals directly for the medical services they provide. Medicare Advantage is a middleman that denies people care, then upcodes them to make them to look sicker, and then they pocket all of that public money. They pocket the difference in their own profit to pay their CEOs and to yield shareholder profit. And then when people actually do need more care, private insurance companies under Medicare Advantage don't want to pay for it. And all of this adds up to private insurance companies under Medicare Advantage taking somewhere between $80 billion and $140 billion per year from the federal government that they then pocket in their own profits. That's a lot of your waste, fraud, and abuse margin right there. $80 to $140 billion per year. So my amendment today is a fusion of several Republican and Democratic supported pieces of legislation. Today, I would like Representative Ruiz and myself are offering up the bipartisan No Upcode Act, originally presented by the Senate Health Committee Chair, Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, as an amendment to this bill. It will go after that $80 to $140 billion in corporate waste, fraud, and abuse. And then it will take that money back in what's being pocketed, and it will reinvest it in actual Medicare and healthcare for everyday Americans to get enhanced and better healthcare that they need and deserve. It will save American taxpayers an estimated $124 billion over 10 years. It is fiscally responsible. Those savings, instead of going to tax breaks for billionaires and corporations, will then be reinvested in Medicare. This reinvestment in funds, which is from a bipartisan policy championed by my colleagues, Representative Ruiz. In fact, we have a Republican representative who is also a co-sponsor on that bill, will ensure doctors are receiving adequate payment for the life-saving services that they provide, that our seniors and people with disabilities get the care that they need, and that profiteering companies no longer are getting away with this loophole.
There we go. I couldn't agree more. Now, look, the problem that we have in healthcare is healthcare isn't something that you can go buy off the shelf like you do other products. In other words, if I go to the store and I see a screwdriver and I don't like the price of that screwdriver, I go to another store and look for the price of that screwdriver. If I break a leg, if I get cancer, if I get all these things, I can't go to different hospitals or different doctors and shop around. First of all, the bandwidth isn't there to do that. And secondly, whereas I have the time to shop for a screwdriver, when I have a broken leg, when I have a broken neck, when I have a broken whatever or a defective organ, I can't sit back down there and spend the time shopping around. So healthcare is very different than buying a product. In other words, healthcare does not belong in a capitalist market. A screwdriver belongs in a capitalist market. A car belongs in a capitalist market. A healthcare doesn't belong in a capitalist market. It is something that should be run by an entity and run by the government. No doubt about it. Because if we do that, we get rid of all the charges these private companies must come up with. They must come up with advertising costs. They must come up with bonuses for executives. They must come up for shareholder value and shareholder dividends. And so there's so many expenses that come out of the premium you pay in private insurance or the government pays for Medicare Advantage, which is nothing more than private insurance, which means it costs more than Medicare proper. We need to wake up. We need to get intelligent. We need to use math because math tells you it is impossible. And this is not up for debate. It is impossible for the private sector to be able to pay for healthcare at a cheaper rate than a single payer government run system. And we have an example because, again, Medicare's overhead is under 3%. The overhead for the private sector Medicare Advantage is way north of 20%, and they do all kinds of tricks to get around it. Upticking, charging the government more than they actually give you in services. It's a racket. It's waste, fraud, and abuse by the private sector. And if Elon Musk wanted to find a lot of money, that's where he needed to go. But of course, he wouldn't touch that or the Defense Department. With every passing day, Donald Trump is acting more like a despot, more like what we know he's always been. Now we're talking about June 14th. It seems like there's going to be a parade for supposedly for the 250th anniversary of the birthday of the Army. But of course, we know it's really the birthday of Donald Trump, and he's always wanted a military parade, and it seems like he's going to get one. So we'll go ahead and have tanks and big trucks rolling through the streets of D.C., and they're going to tear up the streets, even as one general says, maybe not all that bad. Whatever the case is, it's going to cost money. So here we got something that's going to cost us over $45 million to have a parade for the president as we cut veterans administrations, as we cut Medicaid, as we cut a lot of social services. But we have big banners around Washington, D.C. to really say, to the president, to the president. And now we have a $400 million airplane, 747, that was given to the president that he now wants us to turn into Air Force One so that later on he can take the plane into the Trump library and fly it whenever he wants to fly. Folks, don't you get the grift? And it's not just the grift. He wants us to pay for his grift. Check this little report out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Tim, this parade, as we've said, could cost up to $45 million at a very uncertain time in the economy. This, when the president has suggested, look, Americans buy few kids' dolls, fewer pencils. What message does it send, though, that it's okay for him to have a birthday celebration of this magnitude, but kids should cut down on the number of dolls they get?
Yeah, well, that's not a great message. I don't think if it's getting through to folks, Alex, I think that's part of the question is if we live in these different bubbles of information. To me, just like on the merits of it, the amount of money that you're spending on this, when you're talking about the firing of federal government workers, you're talking about the firing of employees at DOD, across the military. And we're doing it simultaneously. We're having this big debate on the Hill that you guys have been covering, where the Republicans are trying to pass a bill that will increase the debt, by $6+ trillion. So together it is just incoherent, right? It's like we don't have enough money to pay for people that work at the VA. We need to cut some of our VA employees. And yet we do have enough money to throw a birthday party for the president where he gets to look at his shiny toys. And we do have enough money to cut taxes for the richest people in the country, and in a way that does not balance the budget, in a way that balloons the debt. It's like taken together, I think it's a pretty offensive policy program. It's just a question of whether, folks will interpret it like that.
General, this $45 million price tag does not include the cleanup or the expected repairs from damage to Washington's roads from the heavy tank traffic. Now, you just said previously that you don't think they will do any damage. I'm going to beg to differ just because of numerous people with whom I've spoken said it will cause some damage. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong, but give me a sense of the damage that can be caused by a tank on just the general asphalt roads and what could be left behind.
Well, look, I spent much of my life in tank mech units. We have Reforger all over Europe and ran tanks down every cobblestone street in Europe. By and large, a tank, unless it turns sharply to the left or right, has a lower ground footprint on it than a 5-ton truck. So they're going to bring those vehicles in on tank transporters called HETs. They're going to try and not have them do pivot steer and go left or right. If they do some damage at turning points, they'll have to repair it. But I think that's a wrong argument. I think the right argument, the one that Tim makes, to look at it in a political sense, it just makes no sense. It's not part of the American culture. This isn't Bastille Day. We normally don't run heavy equipment in parades. By the way, the New York City parade after Desert Storm was 24,000 troops. So this is not a significant event, except that it's a politically boneheaded move to hijack an event for the 250th birthday of our proud U.S. Army and have it enhance the president's birthday, which sounds creepy to most of us.
Yeah. Do you think that message will get through, Tim? You suggested it's not getting through necessarily yet, but do you think it will? I mean, you think he might say something right around June 14th, don't you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and combine it with other stuff, and that's the thing. It's always compounding with Trump, and it's everything about politics. Look, you're getting this free plane from the Qataris that costs $400 million that we're going to have to now. The taxpayers have to pay for making fancier for him. You have this big, I don't know if you've seen this big banner of Trump's face outside of the U.S. Department of Agriculture that looks like it's a third world despot, like where you kind of land in a third world country and you have the Caudillo's face is up on all the government buildings, right? So I think if you combine all these things together, it is creepy. There are going to be MAGA people that like it, but I do think that some folks are going to be turned off by this because it's not our culture, as the generals pointed out.
Now, this is ridiculous. Yep, it's not our culture, and it's a minority of people in this country who support all these shenanigans the president is doing. So what do I have to say right now? Americans, it's time for you to get up. It's time for you to engage. It's time for you to call all your Congress people and let them know this is completely acceptable. It's still in your hands because you know who has the power of the purse? Congress. And you know who controls Congress? You do. It's time for us to wake up. It is time. I want to finish the program. And again, just with this statement. A lot of us are concerned very often that people are not hearing, people are not listening. How did people get the way that they got? A lot of it is that the media that they have access to, the media that they're listening to. We do things differently here. We have an open door policy, and we try to get the proper, correct, truthful message out in a civil manner. But we need to be funded. The other side, they expend hundreds of millions, billions to lie to you, to convince you of things that aren't the way they are. That's what they do. They are invested in keeping us apart, keeping folks fighting among each other. That's the investment to maintain the economic system that we have today. It is a must. It cannot be otherwise, but you can change that. And and this isn't hyperbole when I say supporting stations like ours gives you the ability to change that directive. Supporting stations like ours. Howard is kicking me out, so therefore I must close. Thank you all. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We